Another school shooting, just weeks apart of the other one. America, what are we going to do? America, let's wake up. And let's see who gets this week's Stomp Award. Stay to the end. Coming up. Welcome to another edition of Rewind, my new online digital platform. Before we go any further, I want you to do one thing. I want to take care of some housekeeping. I want you to hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for future notifications. News and views happening within the week. Rewind with Tommy Handsome. Let's get right to it. On May 24th, 2022, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos fatally shot 19 students and 2 teachers and wounded 17 other people at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. He recently shot his grandmother in the forehead at home, severely wounding her. He proceeded to the school and fired shots outside for approximately 5 minutes, then entered with an AR-15 style rifle through an open side entrance door without encountering armed resistance. He then locked himself inside the classroom, killing 19 students and 2 teachers, remaining there for about an hour before being fatally shot by U.S. Border Patrol Technical Force. Just take a look.
First law he signed is what was being called the Constitutional Carry Bill, which gets rid of the licensing and training requirement for Texans.
I'm signing 7 laws to protect Second Amendment rights in the Lone Star State.
Breaking news, an almost unspeakable tragedy.
At least 18 children and 3 adults killed in the mass shooting
outside of Robb Elementary School this morning. Now the scene of the nation's second deadliest school shooting. It feels like the saddest place on earth.
We know from past experience that the most effective tool for keeping kids safe is armed law enforcement on the campus.
Police say Ramos, who was wearing body armor, was immediately engaged outside of the building by a school police officer. Ramos then shot the officer and made his way inside. We support the right of every law-abiding American to be able to have a weapon to defend themselves. That is different from teenagers unlawfully getting access to guns to commit crimes.
These weapons were purchased legally in the state of Texas.
He purchased 2 guns on his 18th birthday.
The shooter, quote, had no problem legally purchasing the assault-style rifles used in the massacre.
My approach is to have multiple options. They are 15.
Law enforcement officials were criticized for their actions in response to the shooting, and their conduct is being reviewed in separate investigations by the Texas Ranger Division and the United States Department of Justice. After initially praising first responders to the shooting, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, let's keep that name in mind, Greg Abbott, called for investigation of the lack of action by incident commanders. Police officers waited 78 minutes on site before breaching the classroom to engage the shooter. Police also condoned off the grounds, resulting in violent conflicts between police and civilians who were attempting to enter the school to rescue their children. It was incident that parents were waiting outside impatiently because police weren't doing enough or wasn't moving fast enough to rescue their kids. So there were parents that were being handcuffed and parents being tackled because they wanted to rescue their kids while police stood outside and did nothing for minutes on end.
Let us do this, man. Let us do this, man. Come on. Let us do this.
It's good news.
We need to get everybody back.
It's already been about an hour and they still can't get the kids all out.
Now I said, keep in mind the name Greg Abbott, who is a Republican and the governor of Texas, and his response to the shooting that took place at the Robb Elementary School. Another Republican, Senator Ted Cruz, I'm not going to call you Ted. I'm going to call you by your real name. Eduardo Rafael. You have blood money on your hands because you are responsible for these incidents. And it took place in your state of Texas. You have blood money because the NRA are padding your pockets. So who benefits from this padding? Your wife and your kids. Notice I said your kids, Eduardo, Ted, because you do anything to protect your kids. You do anything to have your kids eat. But notice these 19 sets of parents can no longer feed their children, can no longer tuck them in bed, can no longer see them at graduations, see them grow up, because you have blood money on your hands, Eduardo. Let's take a look at the interview he had.
There are 19 sets of parents who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight. Thank you.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
It's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some violent psychopath murders people.
A violent psychopath who's able to get a weapon so easily. 18-year-old with 2 AR-15s.
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world just, they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
You know, I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
It is just an American problem, sir.
Cruz, why is America the only country that faces this kind of
You know what?
mass shooting?
But you can't answer that. You can't answer that, can you, sir? You can't answer that. Why is this?
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest, it may be the most
Why are our kids?
Notice Eduardo couldn't stand the heat. So he ran like a bitch. He ran because he's a coward. Notice 2 winters ago in Texas, when they had the problem with the electricity, all the power went out in Texas, and it was cold. What did he do? He took his wife and his kids on a plane to a warm climate, to a climate where it was warm, where a climate where it was cozy, while people in his state of Texas were freezing. Some even froze to death. Notice how he did what he can to take care of his family. He did what he can to take care of his kids. Because he's a coward. He's going to leave Texas and take his kids someplace else where it's safe and when it's warm and where it's cozy. But notice, he did nothing for these 19 kids that were shot and killed. He did nothing when these teachers were shot and killed by this madman, by this monster, because he was able, at 18 years old, to buy a firearm. He can't even buy beer at 18 years old, but he can buy a firearm. Come on, wake up, America. I said it once, and I say it 1,000 times. We live in a backwards nation. Let's look at the school shootings, or the shootings per se, that happen in other countries. Notice that United States want to be #1 in everything. They want to be #1 in education, which they're not. They want to be #1 in business and industry, which they're not. They want to be #1 in manufacturing, which they're not. Look at this graph. Notice that the United States is on the top when it comes to shootings. Look at the other countries when it comes to shootings. Why is America on top for shootings? Look at the other countries when it comes to shootings. Why is America on top for shootings? We should be on top for other things. Anything except for shootings. Here's the poorest excuse for a senator, poorest excuse for a Republican, and the poorest excuse for a man. You can't even stand up to the heat. But it looked like it was a movie. It looked like this whole thing was scripted. We got to realize one thing. This is not a movie. This is real life. See the way he was talking back and what he was doing and being a coward and talking to this reporter? It seemed like something that was scripted, something you see in Hollywood. This is not Hollywood. This is the real thing. You should be exterminated for the things that you do. What happens if somebody in your family, like your kids, were killed by an assault rifle? We wouldn't be having this conversation. This conversation would be null and void. But you, Ted, or should I say your real name, Eduardo, you get this week's Stomp Award. So this week's Stomp Award goes to, you guessed it, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, you're disgusting. You're vile. You're a poor excuse for a Republican, a poor excuse for a politician, a poor excuse for a father, a senator, poor excuse for a man. You just a poor excuse. Ladies, gentlemen, you want an unfiltered analysis of future videos? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for future notifications. You're watching Rewind.